warm welcome to the show. Thank you so much for tuning in and for joining us this morning. This is Smart 24 TV and we drive your business. It's a Thursday morning and I hope you're having a wonderful and fresh morning. Right now, of course, it's your time to get up to speed with what's happening in the world of the financial markets. Here on the show, we talk about the different stock markets. We talk about the Uganda Securities Exchange performance, the Nairobi Securities Exchange, Africa stock exchanges like Nigeria, Ghana, Johannesburg, and of course give you a summary into what is happening currently on those stock exchanges. We also, of course, extend our broadcast to the United States and have a look at Wall Street and some of the major movers on the United States market. The show is proudly brought to you by the OTEX platform of trading. Now, with OTEX East Africa using Zabu, you can be able to buy treasury bonds in East Africa. The treasury bonds are listed in different maturities, including 4-year, 5-year, 10-year, all the way up to over 15 years tenure. And these are products that can be accessed now using mobile money under Zabu. Now, with OTEX East Africa, we are saying you can do something new. Simply go to your phone and dial *292# and follow the prompts. When you do so, you will be able to not only access the market, but learn more about our products at OTEX East Africa. OTEX is regulated by the Capital Markets Authority and opens their gates at 8 a.m. and closes at 3 p.m. East African Standard Time. And that's it, my friend. Let's get to delve into the business of the stock exchanges here in Africa, having a summary, of course, first of all, of what took place in the continent before we get to the specifics here on the show. Generally speaking, the markets were quite mixed in the different regions of the continent. Starting off with Nigeria Stock Exchange, we're seeing an increase of 306.41 points on the benchmark index. That is the Nigeria All Share Index. Nigeria Stock Exchange currently has quite a number of listings with at least over about 156 listings currently that are listed on the Nigerian Stock Exchange. In aggregate, on Wednesday, there were close to 116 equities participating in the markets and closing the day with 36 gainers and 17 losers on the market. Nesto Nigeria led the gainers with a gain of 9.98%, whereas from the bottom, we had the Chalarams coming at the bottom with a depreciation of 9.82%. The Nigerian market continues to be one of the top 10 stocks in the entire Africa. Of course, this including Ghana, including Nairobi, and a couple of others like Egypt. But Nairobi continues to be one of the most outstanding. One of the reasons why is, of course, the business that happens in Nigeria, and that is the oil business, and a couple of other very many booming businesses that are currently happening in Nigeria. And of course, the trading in Nigeria Stock Exchange is also geared by a lot of foreign and of course local investment. With on average, if you look at Wednesday trade, at least over 7.8 billion naira was traded in just a single day of trading. That's how large the Nigerian market is currently. Away from Nigeria, getting ahead to the Johannesburg Stock Exchange, that is the principal stock exchange of South Africa. This is also the benchmark of the continent and the biggest and oldest stock exchange on the continent as well. Johannesburg Stock Exchange has at least close to over about 312 listings currently, at about 421 listings on the main board and the growth enterprise market segment. Now, on Wednesday, at least the day ended with 316 Johannesburg Stock Exchange listings participate in trade. And this was ending the day with at least 121 gainers and over 171 losers. The Sula Ngano Group, that is one of the biggest stocks there on the Johannesburg Stock Exchange, led the gainers with a 22.68% appreciation in price, closing off at 1.19 South African rand per share. Europa Metals also appreciated 18.87%, and the Choppies Enterprise at least also gained 14.75%. On the losing side, On the other hand, we had the company come at the bottom, known as Trustco Group Holdings. Trustco led at the bottom with at least 14% dropped off their trading price on Wednesday. Regarding the performance of the JSE market indices, the benchmark index, that is the J203, tracking the top 203 stocks on the Johannesburg Stock Exchange, at least declined 1,126 points. This was down to at least 75,621 points. Away from Johannesburg Stock Exchange, elsewhere in Africa, Ghana Stock Exchange also lost 8.47 points on their benchmark index. You can see in West Africa, yes, Nigeria really stood out, and most of the other stocks really were down, especially in far west and the far western region. When you look at Ghana, Niger, and the like. Now, Ghana Stock Exchange is also another big stock exchange in West Africa, and on Wednesday, looking at their current market performances, at least there were losses on their benchmark index, dropping over 24.35 points. And the day ended with at least 2,534 points on their benchmark index. In aggregate, at least 14 Ghana Stock Exchange equities participated in trading and closed the day with at least one gainer, and that was Total Energies Marketing Ghana, whereas after losing 0.31%, the stock actually, gaining 0.31%, the stock actually maintained a very, very high performance. Regarding also the losing side, MTN Ghana lost most for the day, at least 1.77%, and the GCB Bank as well lost at least 1.25% from their trading price. And that's it from the rest of Africa. Zimbabwe Stock Exchange continued to rally the African continent markets with a gain of over 5,741, almost 42 points added to their benchmark index. Zimbabwe Stock Exchange is one of the currently busiest and also most profitable stock exchanges in Africa. Now, on Wednesday, at least in aggregate, there are 27 listings participating in trade on the Zimbabwe Stock Exchange, ending the day with 19 gainers and over about 5 losers on the market. First Mutual Holdings led the gainers with a 15% share price appreciation, and this was closing at 43.70 shillings. When you look at the CBZ holdings, they were also gaining at least 15%, and CFI holdings at least about 15% in the Wednesday trades. On the losing side, however, the Pro Plastics lost 1.97%, coming in at the bottom, and Ziplo holdings came in further at the bottom with a loss of 2.69%. Regarding the performance of the benchmark index, the ZSE All Share Index, it soared by 5,741 points, almost closing at 93,115 points for the Wednesday trade. That's it from Zimbabwe Stock Exchange. Let's get back home in East Africa and start off with the Uganda Securities Exchange. Of course, getting to analyze the 18 listings here on the main board of the Uganda Securities Exchange. The Uganda Securities Exchange is the principal stock exchange of Uganda, based here in Kampala at Nakawa Business Center. This is where they get to, of course, serve different investors in Uganda and worldwide. According to data from the Wednesday trades, the markets seem to be relaxed a little bit, comparing the performance with Tuesday and as well as Monday. As per the data, we just had 57,700 shares traded in the day, and at least 9.19 millions that was recorded in turnover. The current market capitalization on the exchange is 17.5 trillion Ugandan shillings. And when you look at the current market participation in Wednesday trades, we had just 3 equities participating in trading, ending the day with 1 gainer and fortunately having 6 losers. The big 3 main participants included DFCU Bank, who came in with 100 shares traded, and the MTN Uganda stock at least having about 55,300 shares traded. This loss, actually, this participation came with a loss, a slight loss on the MTN counter's price after the stock declined by 0.03 shillings. Now, this is despite the very good reports that were revealed in the annual general meeting that was held last week by the shareholders and, of course, the board of directors for the MTN company, as we're going to see later on in the details. Uganda Clays also traded at least 2,300 shares on Wednesday. Now, in aggregate, like I mentioned, only one gainer was registered, and that was Centum. And as you know, Centum did not participate. You can suspect this in the trade. And this was after the stock just appreciated 2.15% at the end of the day, closing off the day with at least a price of 227.76 Ugandan shillings. On the other hand, the losers were quite a number, with Equity Bank Limited coming in at the bottom at a 4.85% depreciation in price, closing off with a 988.68 shillings price, and KCB Group closing off the day with at least a 2.95% depreciation, down to a price of at least 810.15 Ugandan shillings, and Nation Media Group shedding off 1% down to 415.22 Ugandan shillings, whereas the East African Breweries Limited stock closed off with a trading price of 3,949. This was closing off the day with a loss of 0.72%. Kenya Airways at least lost 0.04% down to a price of 103.60 Ugandan shillings, and Jubilee Holdings at least 0.04% was lost down to 4,862. This was, of course, on top of MTN, which also lost some slight amount of value, like I mentioned. Let's have a look at a detailed report here from MTN Uganda. MTN Uganda yesterday was the biggest mover. Yes, the day had fewer shares traded than normal, but still amongst the few shares, MTN had the biggest share in this particular volume. MTN Uganda currently has a market capitalization of at least about 3.7 trillion Ugandan shillings, and currently is the number one most valuable stock on the Uganda Securities Exchange. I think you heard me right. Yes, MTN Uganda is now currently the number one most valuable stock. Now, this shouldn't be very exciting because it literally doesn't have anything to do with how much value they are returning to you. But of course, it gives you a picture of how strong the stock is, and how, of course, any movement in this stock could affect the entire exchange, and of course, how it affects the entire outlook of the market. MTN's current price is 165 Ugandan shillings per share, one of their lowest prices ever since listing on the Uganda Securities Exchange in the year 2021 currently. At the moment, they had at least 22.4 billion outstanding shares at, of course, a trading volume yesterday of 55,300, closing off the day with a 9.12 million Ugandan shillings turnover. On the market, in terms of trade, the stock's weekly performance has dropped by 0.01%, and the 4-week performance has seen at least 1.79%. And as we go into the longer term, the stock has lost a good amount of value. In the past 1 quarter or 3 months, at least 7.82% has also been shed off. And in the past half a year, at least 8.33% has been lost on MTN Uganda. In the last 3 months, we are looking at a record volume of about 16.9 million Ugandan shillings that was traded at MTN. Now, last week, MTN held their annual general meeting. As you understand, of course, as a listed entity, there is a mandate under the Uganda Securities Exchange listing rules to be able to issue audited financial statements at least within a month after the release of those particular results. Now, MTN approved a dividend of 5.5 Ugandan shillings per share for the period ended December 31st, 2022. The payout, which was approved during the Telecom's second annual general meeting last week, totals to at least about 123.1 billion Ugandan shillings. Now, when you look at the lump sums many companies are giving out, this also stands out because MTN has quite a number of shareholders. It has quite a good, number of shares outstanding. It is the number one most valuable stock. So you don't get surprised when they issue this big portion of their profit, over 123.1 billion Ugandan shillings worth of dividend. Now, it comes on the back of an impressive performance last year in which the MTN stock profits actually went up, and according to published financial results during the period, they rose to at least 406 billion Ugandan shillings, boosted by the growth in revenues, especially from the internet data and financial technology services. MTN also reported its income to have increased to a gross amount of 2.2 trillion Ugandan shillings. In a single year, MTN made 2.2 trillion Ugandan shillings. That's something really to reckon with at MTN, registering growth in all revenue systems and streams, and except for voice, especially when it comes to voice bundles, which even after registering a decline, remained the largest income stream. The dividend payout, according to Mr. Charles Mbire, who is the MTN chairman, said in a statement yesterday, is expected to be paid by the 23rd of June, which is not far from now, about a month or so from now. And during the period, MTN indicated data revenues grew by at least 24% to a tune of 511 billion. These are some of the highlights in their financial statements, supported, of course, by an increase in the investment in the 4G and expansion of the fiber network to over 9,418 kilometers. While financial technology, which includes, of course, mobile money, fintechs, and the like, increased by 25%, at least to a tune of 565 billion Ugandan shillings due to growth in the payments and bank interface and remittance. Mobile money pay was the biggest driver of growth, earning more revenues due to an expansion, of course, in the merchant numbers. You know, MTN, Airtel, these brands have introduced merchant codes, and different people can be able to pay for different stuff using their mobile money, using these merchant codes. And these, of course, grew threefold, had to about a tune of 173,000, supported by customer transition to cashless payments. Another outstanding performance, indicator, according to Mr. Charles Mbire, is that MTN did appoint a new non-executive director, and that's Dr. Winnie Tarinyewa Kariabwire. Dr. Winnie Tarinyewa Kariabwire, who is now the new non-executive director, that, of course, noting her governance, her expertise in governance and oversight roles in public, private, and non-for-profit sectors, provided a wealth of experience that will be invaluable, helping the company achieve strategic objectives. That is, of course, the report that came in from MTN Uganda. Despite that report, MTN stock has not yet picked up. I don't know if it wasn't convincing enough for the dividend to be raised, because last year, I think the dividend was around 4.7 shillings, if my memory serves me right. This year, they have added a few shillings here and there to 5.5 Ugandan shillings, which is quite an awesome improvement. Like I mentioned in a few minutes ago, the performance really was much better in terms of increase in the revenue streams and the data services, the fintechs, and of course, merchant codes that really brought in quite a good number of profits. And so I don't know why the reaction in the investors is not that exciting yet, but let's of course look forward to a better performance this week as we move forward for the MTN stock. Now that's it from Uganda regarding the performance of the benchmark index. The all share index declined at least 16.36 points, down to a close of 1,017 points on Wednesday. Let's go ahead to Nairobi, my friends, as of course we draw closer to the end of the show. Nairobi Securities Exchange is the busiest and biggest stock exchange in East Africa. Well, on Wednesday, this biggest stock exchange had at least 47 equities out of 66 now participating in trade. And the day ended with 28 gainers and over about 15 losers. The BOC Kenya at least led the gainers by 10% share price appreciation, closing off at 77 Kenyan shillings per share, followed by Eveready East Africa at 9.68%, whereas the CIC Insurance Group at least added 6.47%. On the losing side, we had the Trans-Century stock lose most after an end-of-day price depreciation of 7.23%. Regarding the movement, Safaricom led the movers with a volume of 8.64% million traded shares. And when you look at the Cooperative Bank of Kenya, came in the second position with a slightly lower volume of 1.17 million. So Safaricom seems to be getting back to its feet. But let's have a look at the impact of this on their pricing. The pricing went down slightly at Safaricom by 0.05 Kenyan shillings, closing off the day at 15.25 Kenyan shillings on the Nairobi Securities Exchange. Furthermore, looking at the benchmark indices at Nairobi Securities Exchange, the all share index fortunately moved upwards. Of course, thank God for the 28 gainers for the day and just 15 losers for the day. After, of course, the stock closed at 98.5 points on its all share index valuation. On the NSE20 and the NSE25, these are other indices for top 20 and top 25 companies respectively. On the exchange, the NSE20 improved by 1.37% and the NSE25 improved at least by 1.09%. That's it, my friend, from Nairobi. Let's go on to the United States and have a look at the stocks there and how they were moved on Wednesday. US stocks moved downwards on Wednesday in aggregate as investors, of course, freighted on the potential US debt default, which, of course, amidst the talks between Kevin McCarthy and President Joe Biden, awaits, of course, the verdict. While the release of the minutes for the Federal Reserve's last policy meetings that showed the Fed officials are less in favor for the need of more rate hikes, there could be, of course, a pressure to see that they deal with the rate hikes this time round. The S&P 500 was down by 0.73%, and the Dow Jones Industrial Average was down by 0.69%, and that is more than 200 points, whereas the technology-heavy Nasdaq Composite was down by 0.74%. That's it, my friend, from the financial markets desk, and you can catch up with more of those stories on our website at www.smart24tv.com. You can also get to our Twitter at Smart24TV now for your latest business content. Remember to check out Alltex East Africa, your number one platform for trading. And with Alltex, we are saying you can do something absolutely new. Simply dial *292# and follow the prompts and be able to register and learn more about our products. Alltex East Africa is regulated by the Capital Markets Authority. And there you have it, my friend. My name is Anthony. Remember to follow me at Anthony Sebale. And of course, tomorrow is Friday, and we will be winding up the week. You don't want to miss out on that show as we get to break down what has been happening throughout this week and what we should be expecting in the next week. Smart 24 TV has more business for you. Stick around. See you tomorrow.